There are places hidden from every tourist map, because no one dares to believe they still exist. They say there's a cliff no one is allowed to point at. No name, no sign. But if you come at the right moment, when the mist is thick, and you stay still for 9 full breaths, it will reveal itself. I thought it was just a story, until a local led me to the edge, then turned away without saying a single word. No one told me to be careful. No one explained why I was the one chosen. There's only one thing I remember clearly. When I took the 3rd step, the wind changed direction. And by the 5th, I couldn't hear anything anymore, not even my own footsteps. At the 9th step, I wasn't sure I was still in China. Because what I saw in front of me didn't belong to any map ever drawn. This is a place Google wouldn't dare to tag. And if you stay quiet enough, you just might see what I saw. People in Shaojin, a quiet county in Sichuan province, call this place Siguniang Mountain of the Four Sisters, but they never name the peaks individually. They say, the 4 peaks are 4 sisters, guarding a gate not meant for the hurried. Some tried to climb the highest peak, but halfway up, they wept, without knowing why. Because Siguniang doesn't show you the world. It makes you look back at yourself. I arrived at Mount Siguniang in late October, when autumn still lingered in golden threads among the thinning trees. The mountain stands at the eastern edge of the Tibetan Plateau, in the Aba region. Some call this range the Alps of the East, but the locals never use that name. They just say, the mountain doesn't need comparison. If it remembers you, it reveals itself. The morning I arrived, clouds clung tightly to the valley floor, like an old blanket wrapped around a secret. The trees stood still. No birds sang. Even the children, usually playful, were silent. The whole landscape felt paused, as if waiting for something that hadn't happened yet. The woman who led me, a Tibetan around her 60s, spoke softly, only once. If it doesn't rain today, it might mean one of the sisters has opened her eyes. I smiled, but in my chest was the distinct feeling that something was watching each step I took. Siguniang has 4 peaks. The highest, Danu Ji, the 4th sister peak, reaches about 22,290 feet, snow-covered all year round. But no one in the village names them out loud. They believe each peak is a keeper of memory, and every memory is a prayer still unspoken. If you carry something silent in your heart, one of the sisters may speak to you. I didn't climb far, just halfway, where the mist began to lift. And there, through the fog, I saw a narrow beam of sunlight cutting across the valley and landing perfectly on the faded wooden roof of a small, empty hut. No one was inside, but the smoke from the hearth was still warm. I didn't knock, not because I was afraid, but because I felt something deep inside me had just been gently touched. Something I had unknowingly waited for a very long time. I used to think beautiful places are the ones that make you want to stay. But Siguniang didn't hold me with scenery. It held me with a feeling I still can't name. And as I left Siguniang, an old man gently placed his hand on my shoulder, without a word. Only later, when I stood on the glass bridge suspended in the sky at Tianmen, did I finally understand. That look in his eyes wasn't a farewell. It was a warning. This bridge isn't as high as Everest. It's not as long as a Western highway, and yet it makes people stop breathing for one simple reason. Beneath your feet is the sky, and behind you is yourself, trembling ever so slightly. I arrived at Tianmen Mountain on a crisp morning in early winter. Just before the light reached over the mountain's edge. There was no music, no voices, only the wind, smooth as glass, cold as a hand never held. The Tianmen Glass Path, located in Hunan Province, hangs at an altitude of about 4,700 feet, roughly the height of a 100-story building. The walkway is just under 5 feet wide, stretching more than 1,400 feet long, like a ribbon of crystal suspended across the sky. Beneath me, there was no rock, no earth, just nothingness. So empty, you could see your heartbeat reflected in the glass, without even looking down. Locals don't call it a tourist attraction. They just say, if your past is too heavy, the glass will tremble. But if your heart is light enough, the wind itself will carry you. I laughed when I first heard that. But after my first step, I couldn't breathe. The glass beneath me didn't crack, but something inside me did. Each step was like becoming smaller, not because of the height, but because of the silence. No one spoke, no one looked back, and at one point, I forgot how to breathe. An old man once said, Tianmen doesn't choose the brave, it chooses those ready to let go. Some people have sat down midway and cried, not from fear of falling, but because for the first time, they felt truly small. I used to think I was fine, until I saw my own reflection, shaking in the glass. Not from vertigo, but because for once I had nowhere left to hide my emotions. That's when I realized, I'm not afraid of falling. I'm afraid that someone might see me weak and leave. But here, no one looks. No one speaks. There's only me, with myself. And strangely, that's when I finally started to breathe. I don't remember how I made it across, only that when my feet touched solid ground, my heart had stilled. But if you think silence is the destination, try stepping into a place where every stone stair remembers the footsteps before you. A place without bells. But somehow, it keeps echoing a prayer you never had the courage to say out loud.